Yo, Dragon Ballers, real quick, I need to let you guys know about two events that are coming up soon, being hosted by PPG. All the info will be down in the description, but we have the Dragon Ball Super Card Game Fest from March 26th to the 27th. This is going to be the first ever event where they are trying out the sideboarded best of one format. Besides that, it'll just be a celebration of the Dragon Ball Super Card Game, so you're not going to want to miss it. The other one is for organized play through the Pro Play Tour. We have the regional qualifier April 2nd in Kentucky, shots to the Midwest, so you're definitely not going to want to miss that. Shout out to PPG because they run awesome tournaments, but also besides that, this is the thing I've been concerned about in the past where these tournaments just don't get enough advertisement. So shout out to PPG for doing more and putting in more work to advertise these events. I hope to see you guys there. Let's get back into the video. Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another event coverage video. 2 in 1 week, pretty unusual, but the way that the information came out for the two webcam events took place over the weekend, I kind of felt like I had to do it like this. So in yesterday's video, we talked about the Carta Magica online event, and in today's video, we'll be covering the top 16 of the core TCG online event. So if you're new here, make sure to subscribe, hit that bell so you don't miss a video. And if you guys want to help support the channel, there are many ways to do so down in the description. But in the spirit of competitive events, if you guys want to step your game up, check out the Patreon down in the description. Not only can you read the articles that I post there, but you can also inquire about some coaching if you're interested. Either today or tomorrow, depending on my work schedule, I'm going to be posting my tournament report for my King Piccolo deck, where I go over my intentions with the deck, how I feel like the deck is, positioned in this meta, which I do talk about today and in yesterday's video as well, but I go more in depth and I go through the specific matchups and how to approach them. So if you want to pick up King Piccolo or just want to read some competitive content, make sure to check that out. Anyways, let's jump right into this. So if you notice from yesterday's video, we have a much longer list of decks. So this is almost 16 exclusive leaders in top 16, which is kind of wild. Like, we've had some formats like this, and to be back to this kind of place is honestly pretty refreshing. I know there are a lot of players that don't necessarily love this. It is hard to please everyone, of course. There are some people who like more like triangle-ish formats where it's like, 6 of one deck, 6 of another, and like 4 of another, just stuff like that. But there are a lot of players like myself who like these really diverse formats, and then some players who enjoy tier 0 formats. You can't please everyone, but I think it is pretty cool that this, wide range of decks is very, very playable. Once again, just like yesterday's video, I'm going to shout out Eggman because down in the description, all the deck lists are going to be available to you guys. Thanks to him. Shout out to him for doing that work for the community. It is very, very cool. So anyways, let's list this off and then we'll go in, more in depth, deck by deck. So we have Andrew 18 taking the tournament here. We have 2 King Piccolo, one of which was myself taking 3rd place. Again, that's where my tournament report will be on the Patreon. I also didn't want to do a video of my own deck profile because we had my teammate Marcelo take 1st place with KP, so I didn't really want to do 2 like back-to-back KP lists. So that's again why I'm doing that on the Patreon for my 3rd place tournament report. Anyways, 1 Bulma rounding out another red deck. Then we have 1 King Cold. So green actually makes a stand here as it didn't make a stand in yesterday's tournament. Then we had yellow Trunks, Golden Frieza, Sin Chanron rounding out our yellow decks. Gogeta Zeno and SS4 Bardock for our black leaders. Janemba Mill, Cooler Mill rounding out Mill. And then for blue, we had Android 16, 2 Soul Striker as opposed to yesterday's 1 Soul Striker, and an SS4 Vegeta, which I think is actually pretty interesting to talk about. We'll get to that in just a minute. But anyways, yeah, let's talk about it more in depth here. All right, so we're starting off talking about Mill because Mill won the tournament. Sort of similar to yesterday's showing where we had an Android 18 and a Janemba Mill both make top cut. So there's definitely some consistency there. And once again, Android 18 taking the tournament is definitely a big deal. But this time, instead of Sin Zeno, we have a Red Cooler. Now, what I'll say about Red Cooler is that it is a mill deck. It does certainly have the capability to mill out your opponent. I'll also say that it's mill because it relies on your opponent playing battle cards. It's the easiest mill to play around technically, but at the same time, if you're a deck that relies on investing battle cards into the board to apply pressure and whatnot, that can severely hinder your game plan. But the other thing about Cooler is that it's the mill deck that probably has the most actual kill potential, like the ability to put your life to 0. So Cooler definitely varies a lot in that sense. But yeah, just going over Mill, again, it's in a good position in this meta where things are a bit slower. I do think aggro is actually in a healthy state. There are a fair amount of aggro decks in this meta from today's tournament and yesterday's tournament that we covered. But yeah, Mill is still going to be in a better spot because things have slowed down a whole turn or two as far as like the earliest you can lose the game, right, in most scenarios. So Mill's in a good spot there. And I think people are going to be a little bit surprised about Mill winning the event. But when you think about it, it's not all that surprising because in best of one, especially no pre-sideboard, you do expect decks that wouldn't necessarily be super expected in a best of 3 to do much better. Pre-side best of 1, this could change a little. You can side pretty specifically for most of these matchups, like Janemba and Cooler. Koitsukai can be really solid. Koitsukai can be good against Android 18 as well. You might want to bring in a counterplay for Oceanus Negate that can actually also help against Cooler. But what I will say is, going into a best of 3, if I continue to play red, I'm definitely going to be equipped with my, I think it's called Baby Vengeance Unleashed, the 1-drop that can just suck up all the clone tokens. I think I will probably heavily consider siding that card. But anyways, yeah, Mill wins the event. Let's move on. So next up we have red. Okay, so King Piccolo, not going to go too in depth here because, again, we talked about it a lot yesterday. I do think it's quite possibly the most broken deck in this format because it just does so much for free. I do want to talk about Bulma though. Bulma is a pretty cool deck to see in this top 16 because this is one of the decks that was kind of like the biggest target of Fu Shrouded Mystery. Like, Bulma was a really cool red deck that just doesn't do what typical red decks do. It's not very aggressive. It just sets up 1.5 million blockers and tries to outvalue the opponent that way while also drawing 2 cards on its unawakened side. Actually relies on some red boss monsters, which you don't typically see, as well as the Vegito Unison that prevents your opponent from playing battle cards by skills. And if you guys know anything about how the Dragon Ball Super card game works, that card is severely broken if you can make it to that card in a healthy state, right? But Fu Shrouded Mystery has said, okay, I don't care about any of your blockers. I don't care about anything you're doing, really. I play this card and you just get destroyed, right? So that card being out of the meta is definitely very, very cool for Bulma. But the other big thing here that you should notice is that there's no U7 Goku in this top cut whatsoever, which when we compare to yesterday's results is actually just kind of mind-blowing because it was the most highly rep deck in the room, first of all, and second of all, in the top 16. So to not see it here is definitely kind of wild. And it's very, very possible that, you know, the players playing the deck just had a bad day, or maybe it was just much lower repped in this tournament. Maybe people, for some reason, just didn't decide to play this deck at the same volume that they decided to play it at in the Cartamagica event. So definitely a very interesting phenomenon that I definitely wanted to point out there. Next up, we have yellow. Okay, so we have 2 returning decks from yesterday's discussion. Yellow, Trunks, and Sin. Chanron, once again, some people do think Sin is best deck in format. These results from yesterday and today don't necessarily reflect that. And I do think Sin gets a little bit worse in a best of 3 environment if people really want to hate on it. Like, cards like Max Power, cards that remove their 9-drop can be very difficult to deal with. There's actually also, I think it's called Dark King's Flash. There's a whole extra card that flat out just negates your leader's ultimate ability, if you will. Will people play that card? I think maybe it's viable if you're playing more of like a long game oriented deck, but yeah, that's just me like kind of saying like I think Sin is very, very good, but I don't necessarily know if it's going to be considered best deck in format. I think we're going to have to see several more tournaments as to decide what could be the best deck in format. Yellow Trunks, again, expect to see it at 1 in a top 16. That makes sense to me. It is a bit weaker than Icarus, but still a solid deck. But this time, Golden Frieza makes a top cut appearance here. This is actually a blue-yellow list. Very, very cool to see blue-yellow doing some things here. Not quite Goku Black Wish, not the new blue-yellow stuff you might have thought, but Golden Frieza is here to just say that, you know, I'm a set 1 leader, I'm still powerful, and it really is strong. Like, it's literally a yellow Soul Striker, which is kind of busted. Like, if it wasn't for the fact that you had to play, like, these lower quality cards, these 1-drops that just draw cards to facilitate your deck's engine, this deck would probably be tier 0. There's just a weird tangent there, but yeah, Golden Frieza I think is very, very strong. Very cool to see it make this top cut. And what I will say too is that I think yellow is actually in a pretty healthy spot, only taking up this majority of the top 16, because, you know, going back to the past like maybe 3-4 formats, yellow was a bit overbearing. So it does seem like yellow is still good, but not overbearing like it has been in the past. So I would say that's a pretty good step towards balance. I would say all the colors are pretty solid right now, except for green. So as far as step towards balance goes, that's pretty good. Very unfortunate for the green players, but anyways, let's move along. Now for blue. So yesterday we had Android 16 and Soul Striker. Today we have a new addition with SS4 Vegeta. This is pretty cool, and honestly, with Cell Surge out of the meta, I am not all that surprised by this. I wouldn't be surprised if we start to see more SS4 Vegeta, because it's not quite in Soul Striker's position where it's as easy to hate on. But I will say though, if you're playing your main strategy as Turning the Tide Turbo, that's probably not going to be all that successful in best of 3, because I think longer game decks are going to be prepared with Jiren counterplay to stop Android 17, but there is still a pretty good amount of blue boss monsters like Kale 5-drop, which SS4 Vegeta can get full value of very, very early is a really insane card. So maybe if these builds kind of just like transition into that space. I haven't looked at the SS4 Vegeta list myself yet, but I am actually interested to see what boss monsters they really do lean on. In best of one, that where I don't think a lot of people are thinking about this deck, I think the Turning the Tide Turbo is actually a very good strat, because again, I just don't think people are prepared for it and thinking about it. But again, this is the type of deck where if it picks up popularity, people will prep for it. And I did talk a lot about Android 16 in yesterday's video, as well as Soul Striker, so I won't go too in depth there just for the sake of people who watch yesterday's video. Again, if you want more talk about the meta, just go ahead and watch yesterday's video. But anyways, all right, for black, yesterday we had Gogeta Xeno pretty much repping our black aggro kind of like role in the meta, and it's here again today. Once again, yesterday it had 2 slots, today it has 1 slot. So again, just not very overbearing. Nothing in this meta seems to be overbearing, except for yesterday's results showing 3 U7 Goku, but there's 0 U7 Goku today. So if you think about it that way, it sort of balances itself out. But the cool addition to today's top cut is SS4 Bardock Prismatic Striker. While it is a black leader, it's very, very different than Gogeta Xeno, even though it does rely on Gogeta Xeno type boss monsters. But yeah, rainbow deck, so it's very, very cool to see that a rainbow strategy can succeed in an environment like this. It is very, very neat. And then finally, guys, we have King Cold making a stand for green. We talked about this, leading up to this meta, and we talked a little bit about it yesterday, where green just didn't really have a solid representative. The most green you had in this top cut from yesterday was Android 16, just splashing blue green. But today we do have a mono green savior, King Cold. Funnily enough, it was not Devin Buttersworth, shout out to him, who normally just tears up tournaments with King Cold. But yeah, I do think green is in this kind of like rogue position where, we'll see King Cold top some events, we'll see Green Gotenks top some events, but I don't think it's going to be all that consistent. But of course, I could be absolutely wrong about that. But anyways, guys, hope you enjoyed today's video. Let me know in the comments below what you're thinking about this current meta. Are you happy with it? Do you think things should change? Let me know. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.